Matt Miller, ESPN draft analyst, and you can see him on NFL Draft Daily, weekdays at 3 on ESPN2, ESPN app, and Disney+. Matt, good to have you with us. Hand size seems like it was so 3 years ago. Now it's arm length. When did this happen? Why did this happen?
Well, it happened because this is a one quarterback draft, so we don't have the quarterbacks to obsess over. But I'll tell you this, if Ty Simpson from Alabama comes in at 6'1" with a 9-inch hand, we're probably going to be talking about it again. But because we know that Fernando Mendoza is 6'4", 225 pounds, we don't have to have the panic this year about hand size because we know he's big enough in terms of the NFL standard. What we do get to obsess about is, does Ruben Bain have 32-inch arms or not? Forget what he did in the college football playoffs. Forget that he was the most dominant defensive player in college football for most of last year. We got to worry about that quarter of an inch and how much of a difference it actually makes. And it's that time of year. Like this is my 15th combine. I still don't know that arm length matters unless you have context to that shows you on tape that a player's short arms or small hands are an issue. But it is one of those things that we get pretty bored in late February and need something to talk about.
Okay. If you were going to have long arms, do you want it for your tackle or your edge rusher?
Both in a perfect world, right? And I will say this, if Will Campbell hadn't struggled in the Super Bowl with short arms, with standard arm length, I also don't know that we'd be talking about it as much as we are. But in a perfect world, you want long arms because that allows me to get to you faster. You can make up for that by having faster hands, a faster punch. You can make up for it by having better power, which Ruben Bain does. I was talking to someone at dinner last night. Ruben Bain is like a boxer. So he might have short arms, but once he gets inside your arm length, he has so much power in his hands, in his arms, in his hips, that he's going to just roll over you like a dump truck once he gets there. So yes, there are times where you would prefer an edge rusher to have longer arms. I would rather an edge rusher have power instead of relying on arm length. I think in a perfect world, you want your tackles, offensive tackles, to have that reach because it does allow them to be late at times, which is exactly what we saw in the Super Bowl where Will Campbell was late and didn't have the length to make up for it.
Yeah, but also I don't know how, injured he was with his knee. In fairness to him, I mean, he got exposed in the playoffs. It wasn't just the Super Bowl. But he's going against guys who will expose you. I mean, Will Anderson is a great edge rusher. But do the Patriots have a problem at left tackle?
No, I don't think so. I think everything's fixable. And that's the key to remember with these guys. We're going to pick apart their measurements this week and their traits this week. But the idea is that these are not finished products. They're not coming into the NFL and we say, okay, this is as good as you are. You should never get better. Will Campbell I think there's some footwork stuff that could be cleaned up in terms of his posture. And then I think there's some timing things that could be cleaned up. And to your point, Dan, which is a great one that got lost in the playoffs, he was playing hurt throughout the later part of the season. So that's going to also allow him, you would think, better timing as he goes to cut off those edge rushers. But also, Will Anderson's going to beat you. I'm sure you've heard this saying, they get paid too. It doesn't mean Will Campbell's bad just because Will Anderson's a little bit better. Will Anderson's one of the best pass rushers in football. And the Seattle Seahawks had one of the best schemes in football. So I don't think the Patriots have a problem. I think they have a player who, remember 1 year ago, Will Campbell had just played a season, and then he's in draft prep, pre-combine training, then you're in pro day training, then you're in rookie mini camp, then you're in training camp, then you're playing a 17-game season. This dude hasn't had a break in a year and a half. And so I think it's also a matter of give him an offseason to get healthy, to get right, to work with his offensive line coach. Most of these guys have a private offensive line coach they'll go work with. And I bet we see an improved player next year.
The best player in the draft, regardless of position.
Jeremiyah Love, running back, Notre Dame. I don't think it's particularly close.
Really?
And, I don't think it's close. I mean, what he did the last 2 years at Notre Dame was phenomenal. I mean, he has the Notre Dame record for most touchdown runs over 90 yards. He had a 98-yard touchdown run against Indiana a year ago. He had a 94-yard touchdown run this year. And he's 214 pounds.
But let's compare him, though, Matt. If I'm going to compare him to Saquon Barkley coming out of Penn State.
It'd be close. They would be 1A, 1B as prospects. I think he's right there with Bijan Robinson and Saquon as the best running back prospects of the last 10 years.
Dang.
Better than Genty because he catches the ball better. You watch him against Arkansas, he catches 2 touchdown passes. One is a legitimate route. These are not swing passes. He's flexing out and running routes and catching touchdown passes. So it's just so easy to see exactly how he'll fit into an NFL offense.
We're talking to Matt Miller, ESPN NFL draft analyst. Who should take Jeremiyah Love?
I mean, I think the conversation starts with the Cardinals at 3. I mean, obviously the Raiders should take Fernando Mendoza. He's a winner. He's poised. He's accurate. He's everything you want in a quarterback prospect outside of maybe some better mobility. I think the Jets, with the trade this morning, trading Jeremiah Johnson, they're going to go edge rusher at 2. So the conversation for Love probably starts at 3. That's where the Cardinals are. The Titans are at 4. They just added an edge rusher in Jermaine Johnson, which was one of their biggest needs. The Giants at 5, probably not, because we love Cam Scatabo. But then I think the floor is Kansas City at 9.
Yeah.
So 3 to 9 is probably where he's at. And being here for 2 days now, I can tell you one thing I hear from everyone else in the NFL is, please do not let Jeremiyah Love fall to Kansas City. Don't let that happen. Do not give Patrick Mahomes Jeremiyah Love, which, in fairness, we heard the same thing about Xavier Worthy, and it really hasn't made that much of a difference. So I think Kansas City has bigger issues than just, giving Patrick Mahomes a generational running back talent.
Yeah, I had Love second on my Heisman ballot. I thought that he was a difference maker. Of all the players that I saw, he was the one that you had to account for every single game, every single play that he was in there. It was, and to have that where he can take it 90 yards, there aren't many players who can do that, and that's why. I mean, he's a top 10 pick, but as soon as you brought up where you think he's going to go, I immediately went, he'll fall to Kansas City at 9.
But can they draft a running back when they have no pass rush? Their best corner is 1 year left on his contract. He could be traded. Their right tackle's terrible. Their tight end's about to retire.
Okay, but let me throw
number
this
one
out.
Receiver may be suspended. Can you take a running back?
But Matt, their over-under is 10.5.
Yeah.
How do you explain the Chiefs are at 10.5, according to DraftKings?
Patrick Mahomes. It's that simple. It's that simple. They have Mahomes, and that will win you a lot of ball games.
But is he starting week 1? Is he going to be there week 1?
DraftKings might know more than we do about his rehab. They've got people in Texas right now watching him work out probably. I think Mahomes covers up a lot. I fear the Chiefs are getting to that point where they say, we have Mahomes. We can almost throw anything out there and win and be successful. And you also have Andy Reid, who is one of the greatest NFL coaches of all time. But it's a roster that needs a lot of work, and they only have 6 draft picks. And they're $11 million over the cap right now, which they can. The cap's kind of fake. You can make that up, but that's a roster that has a lot more holes than people realize because Andy and Pat have covered a lot up.
I'm a big Malik Willis fan, and I have been, and I could see Minnesota, Arizona, Miami going up. We'll give you 3 years, $100 million. I'm curious how you viewed Malik Willis when he first came out.
Yeah, I liked him. He was my number 2 quarterback that year, and it was tight between he and Kenny Pickett. So, I mean, we're not really talking about the 1983 NFL draft in terms of talent that year. But I liked him. I thought he was just really inexperienced. Playing at Liberty, he hadn't gone against a lot of elite talent. And what I felt was he needed to either go out and play with a team that was going to develop him and give him a long leash, or he needed to go somewhere where he could sit behind an established veteran and learn. What's weird is he really never got either of those. He never got the long leash in Tennessee. And then you go to Green Bay, and Jordan Love is an established starter, but this isn't Matthew Stafford that you're learning behind. This isn't someone that's been in the league for 15 years, but he's played so well in spots. I'm a fan of his as well. I think when you have a quarterback that has been thrown into situations and succeeded, I think a quarterback that's battled adversity and not given up, that has really doubled down and made himself into a better player, those are the things that I would be encouraged by. And I could take connecting the dots. A lot of people think he'll end up in Miami as long as they can figure that out cap-wise with Tua moving on, going a different direction. But when you have a head coach and a general manager coming from one place to another, it does make sense that they would. You remember the movie Any Given Sunday? It's like when Al Pacino goes to the expansion team and he takes Willie Beeman with him. It almost feels like that's what the Packers are about. The guys are going to Miami and they're like, and we're taking Malik Willis with us as well.
I always hear from Michigan fans when I'm critical of J.J. McCarthy. I just didn't see it when he was in college because the way Jim coaches, you got to be able to run the ball and play defense. And I don't think they relied on J.J. Now, he did have a couple of games where they did rely on him, but I know he's been banged up, maybe thrown in too soon. But, I mean, what's missing here? What am I missing with J.J. McCarthy?
I think I missed it too because I liked him coming out and I had the same concerns. I went to the Michigan Pro Day and talked to the coaches about like why did you hide your quarterback at times? And their answer was, well, we didn't hide our quarterback. We just didn't have to use him. Our run game was so good, our offensive line was so good. Why throw the ball if running's working? That was really their answer. And it's like, okay, well, maybe there's some truth to that. And it seems like the NFL agreed because he was a high first round pick. But I think right now he looks to me like a player where the game is just way too fast for him. And it's like with Malik Willis. How do you fix that? You either go play a hell of a lot of football and you're given a long leash to make mistakes, or you sit and learn behind someone that knows what they're doing. And I think that's why we saw Minnesota try to bring in Daniel or keep Daniel Jones, after they traded for him. I think it's why we'll see Minnesota go after a Geno Smith or a Kirk Cousins in this offseason, just so that maybe they're not giving up on McCarthy, but they're saying, okay, why don't you sit and watch somebody that knows what they're doing, and to be able to do that while not injured, because, when Sam Darnold was there, McCarthy was hurt. So he's not in the building taking those same reps that he would if he was the number 2 quarterback. He's still 22 years old. Yeah. I mean, there's still a ton of time left for JJ McCarthy. I think now it's kind of that moment of, are you willing to admit that it's not working and do the work? Where guys like, we have Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, so many examples of quarterbacks that had this same moment and bounced back. I think we're close to having that conversation with McCarthy.
Fernando Mendoza, first quarterback taken. Give me the next 3 quarterbacks.
Ty Simpson will be the second one. And after that, it is a mess. And I think this week will actually matter. And normally I think we come into the combine and we kind of know the quarterback order. Mendoza will go first. Ty Simpson probably goes back into round 1. Then I think it could be Drew Aller from Penn State, who's a traits first quarterback that was injured this past year in October. Didn't really get a chance to have that resume year that we would have liked to have seen from him. Carson Beck, on the other hand, comes into the year off that UCL injury and played really well down the stretch for Miami, even if there were times they hid him a little bit, but he played well for them. And then you have Garrett Nussmeier, whose dad is an offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. He had kind of an up and down 2 years as a starter at LSU, but he has the football IQ, the accuracy. He kind of has a little bit of a gunslinger mentality. It's one of those guys is next, and I think those would be the next 3. And it will probably come down to what teams are looking for. If you're the LA Rams, maybe you go after Drew Aller because Stafford's getting close to retirement age. You've proven that you want a quarterback that can make all the throws, that can push the ball down the field. That's not really Nussmeier. So it's you kind of start to eliminate who the guy could be based on traits that way.
If I put Mendoza in the draft a couple of years ago, the quarterback-heavy draft, where does he go in your opinion?
In 24 with like Caleb and Jaden and those guys, I think he goes 4th. Caleb Williams is, I will maintain, the best quarterback prospect I've seen. It's he and Joe Burrow are up there as the 2 best in the last 10 years. I do think Jaden Daniels coming off that year at LSU still goes 2nd. Drake May still goes 3rd, just on who he is as a person, the physical traits, the upside as such a young player. Mendoza is 4th. And I bet you right now the Falcons would rather have Fernando Mendoza than Michael Penix Jr. Yes. I don't think that's even a conversation, right? They would be very happy with Mendoza right now.
If you're Houston, do you extend C.J. Stroud now?
I would, just because I think the number's only going to go up, but it has to be a common sense extension. It should not be one of these, it's your turn as a free agent, let's reset the market with you, because we've seen so much of that and it hasn't worked out. These teams that extended early, really outside of Kansas City, the early extensions where contracts were bloated and ballooned didn't work out. So many of those guys ended up being cut. So I think you do it early if it can make sense financially. I don't think you give CJ Stroud $50 million a year, $60 million a year, some of the numbers that quarterbacks are expected to make in this next cycle. But I think CJ's struggles have been a little bit overstated because, he's a third-year quarterback. We expect these guys to make jumps. I would look at Houston's offensive line and say that offensive line just completely got reworked last year. I mean, they wiped the slate clean and started over. I still think CJ Stroud could be a really good quarterback in this league.